Hello and welcome to session 6 of Untangle Your Brand. Last time was all about engaging visually, so we developed a brand personality, we then looked at different colours and fonts and how elements can combine to create something that's going to be right for our audience. This session is all about brand architecture, which is really about organising our products and services. You can download the worksheets that go with this, and that will really help you with your understanding. Many of you might not be in a position to start with brand architecture yet, but as soon as you start developing new products and services, this will be really, really informative for how you do that in a coherent way. So what is brand architecture? Well, kind of quite simply, brand architecture is a relationship between everything. It's how everything kind of comes together and so it makes sense. It's as simple as that, really. It's sort of like a foundation principle of branding. And when we look at brand architecture, I think there's two things that you really need to focus in. What is most important? Is it that people are loving the brand? We call it the parent brand. So in this case, on the left-hand side, Apple. Or is it they loving the product? So the parent brand on the right-hand side is Nike, but they talk about the Air Jordans. So are you building a brand that everyone is going to love the parent, or they're going to love the product? And sort of thinking about that question will help you decide how to talk about your products and services in relationship to your brand. I'll just give you some more examples. So these are some of the foundational principles for brand architecture. We talk about monolithic, everything being the same. So it's quite a classic kind of approach, and it's the easiest thing to do when you start. Or we have what we call an endorsed approach, where we stick our brand and our logo on any new product and service. Or we have a branded approach. So some of the big multinationals do this, where you're not as familiar with the actual parent brand, in this case Unilever or Procter and Gamble, but you know the product brand more because actually it's got a lot of fame to it, because they're really selling to the consumers. And these different ways of approaching brand architecture are what all the bigger companies are doing, but it's still relevant to your business. Increasingly, there's been this hybrid approach where you take a company like Google, their key product, Google, became so famous, it was its company name, but actually because that product became so famous, they had to create a new name for their overall company, which they called Alphabet, to allow their product name to live in a world of itself without actually, and allowing them to do other products and services that might seem more tangential. Even when they buy businesses like YouTube, they don't necessarily bring the Google brand into it. It's just the YouTube brand. So that's more of a branded approach. So it's hidden. So everyone is sort of using different principles of brand architecture to actually kind of present their different products and services to the audiences in ways that are relevant to them. And that's what we want to try and achieve for you. So I'm going to explain this in three different ways. I'm going to talk about three different things, really. First is about record collecting. I'll then talk about crisp eating, because everyone likes crisp. And finally, vacuum cleaning, because that will help us understand a little bit about naming. Having gone through the rest of the course, you should have a really good idea about what your what is, your how, and your why. These are the fundamental parts of the brand donut, really. The offer, the mission, and the brand core. And this is really important that you bring out and you kind of emphasize on, because it's really going to help you when you're doing the brand architecture. The other stuff is less important. So this is the model that we will use for brand architecture. And I just want to show you that as it applies to something, to give you an example of how you can simplify your brand down. So think about the records that I've got around me. What is that? What is the offer? Well, the offer, the products and services that a business sells, it's a collection of records. And this is just a sort of simple thing. What is the primary product and service that you're selling? In this case, I'm going to sell a bunch of records. They're not actually for sale. So what is the differentiation? What makes it unique? And me, it's a personal curation. I've bought records since I was 10 years old. And it's really important to me I have those personal stories about them. So what is the differentiation? What is the unique thing about your business? But why are you doing this central purpose? And for me, it's about the emotional connection, literally, that I want to have with music. I want to be able to sit there, listen to it and enjoy it. So summarizing my brand, just this record collection in a very sort of brief way, the what, how, and the why. It's a record collection, personal curation for now and for the future. So if you can summarize your brand in a simpler way and just focus in on that as we're thinking about brand architecture, it'll really, really help you going forward. So sticking with records, thinking about the way things are organized is really important. Now, records organize themselves pretty natural because of their sizes. Well, how can you organize your products and services so that they are easier to catalog effectively? You've got to rationalize things. I've got so many different genres here that it would be ridiculous to have little kind of subgenres and subgenres. So where are the overlaps? So I only focus on like a dozen or so genres really, kind of indie, dance, jazz, soundtracks. Sometimes I go a little bit more in depth on the 7 inch because there's more of them. So thinking about how you categorize and subcategorize things, but not having too much and making sure it's relevant to your audience is really important. The next thing is to clarify everything. Make sure that the information that you present to people is as clear as possible. So I've got everything in little labels. They've got little stickers on things, so the information is easy to find and easy to present to, so that you always find that information in the right way. To think about the information that you're sharing with people. Is it as clear as it should be? So these again are the sort of principles of kind of thinking about how you organize, rationalize, and clarify your product range. Really thinking about the basic structure and simplified for your audience. Clear and consistent information will really help you there. The next part of brand architecture is to really think about how those individual products and services, now that you've organized them, come together visually. And I'm going to show that by thinking about crisp brands. So there's so many different crisp brands out there, different flavors, different shapes, different sizes. And we're kind of familiar with these. We go down to the corner shop and pick up our favorite packet of crisps. One of the most famous brands in the UK is obviously Walker's. And they take a monolithic approach to their branding. So when you think about it visually, those packets of crisps are all the same design. They've got the same logo, they've even got exactly the same product shot. All they've got is different labels and different colors so that you know which are prawn cocktail, which is salt and vinegar, which are ready salted. And this is what we mean by a monolithic approach. Everything is pretty much sort of treated the same, apart from some of the labels and some color distinction. Now, Walkers also own a whole bunch of other crisp brands, and they include Doritos, Monster Munch, Sensations. And what this helps them do is to use their brand, so they've still got their logo, but be able to target different audiences at different price points and create maybe a more luxury-based crisp or a more fun crisp for kids. But they're actually using some of their existing brand elements to attract that audience, because people have bought into the Walker's brand, they believe it's a great brand, so they can stretch that and endorse other products and services with their brand. Sometimes you'll see that, so Walker's do Doritos, the logo is just on the back, but it's quite large and it's quite dominant. So this is all about getting the parent brand association and stretching it across different products to reach different audiences. Finally, the branded approach. So actually Walker's are owned by PepsiCo, and PepsiCo obviously own Pepsi. And they don't care really about, the different. The final thing to think about is branded. So PepsiCo actually own Walker's. They are the parent brand of Walker's, who is a parent brand of, say, Doritos. So this is where it gets more complicated. But all Pepsi are trying to do is own the shelf. So if you're going into a shop and buy some crisps, a snack, or a drink, they want to be able to sell you their product and service. So the PepsiCo brand is actually quite minimal in these products and services, but you will actually see it on the packet of crisps, right at the small print, probably at the footer. And that actually is them just saying, we own all this. We are the dominant player in this shelf. And actually you are buying the quality that you associate with Pepsi. Quite often these brands have a famous product themselves. So, Pepsi, Pepsi Cola, and that's their number one product, but they've also over time bought other brands and different products and services that fit within their market segment. So when you look at those monolithic, endorsed, and branded, there are different strengths and weaknesses. And obviously with a monolithic approach, you've got a very positive association with the parent brand. Everything is very strong, but it's very difficult to differentiate products and services. If you think about the endorsed approach, there's quite a positive relationship because the parent brand endorses everything, but there can be some conflict. So the sub brand that you've created can actually start to dominate. Doritos, for instance, is probably more thought of than Walker's. But it can be kind of a bit more expensive to maintain, can get a little bit more confusing if you don't do it right. And when you get onto the branded only tool type market, you're basically creating separate brands. You have to go through this whole course for each brand that you're creating. You need to create a separate brand for everything. So it's really expensive to maintain, but the businesses that do it have such market dominance that it's worth them investing all that time and money to create it. The final thing that I want to talk about is vacuum cleaning. I'm just using this as an example to kind of highlight some things that people use around naming their products and services. So if we think about, 3 brands, Dyson, Henry, and Hoover, and they're all kind of category is carpet cleaners, basically. And when I think about the name in more detail, when I start to research these things, typically the name is split into four parts: about the parent brand, the product name, the unique benefit, and the category in which they're operating. So again, back to these three vacuum cleaners, they are all just vacuum cleaners. That is the category. It's the base descriptor. It's the number one thing that kind of connects them all, if you like. Each of them then has some sort of unique benefit that actually helps you understand what makes it different to any other model that's out there. So Animal Plus, Petless, Pets, Bagless. These are kind of super sucking vacuum cleaners compared to other things out in the market. But then we'll have a product name like the DC39, Henry, or the Hoover Helix. And these are the product names that they've given to these individual things. And they have a parent brand, so Dyson, Pneumatic, Technotronic. And the parent brands have a different sort of relationship. And this is the back to the brand architecture, that you can sort of see that the Henry, which is an endorsed brand, the Pneumatic brand, which you may see in other things, isn't that well known. Everyone knows the Henry. Whereas the Hoover Helix, no one really knows Technotronic Industries, and they don't want you to know Technotronic Industries because Hoover is such a famous name. Whereas obviously Dyson, because of its kind of technology approach, they want you to focus on the parent brand name. So they've taken a technology, DC39, Dyson, that's what they want you to think about. They don't want you to focus in on the actual product name. They want you to focus in on the brand name. And again, when you look at it together, these are the sort of different reasons for choosing different approaches to brand architecture. Is it all about the parent? Is it all about the product? Do people trust the brand, or do people just loving the product? And there's no right or wrong answer for this. It's going to come down to the different approach that's going to be right for your business and your audience. But at least this will help you think about those things as you start to build and develop visual identity for individual products and services. There is a kind of a bunch of tasks to go with this, and I would definitely think about summarizing your brand, the what, the how, and the why, so that you've got that basic information. I would look at thinking about, how could you organize, what are the things that are going to help the basic relationship between everything. There's also this decision tree diagram, and probably everyone can try that. And the first question is, are you selling multiple products? If you're not selling multiple products, just focus on the parent brand. But as you start to develop multiple products, you will probably kind of naturally go into a monolithic approach, because that's going to be easier and cheaper to maintain. So you can go through that, but think about what are the best approaches for you and how you might use that for your brand going forward. And finally, I just want to show you back to the cheese brands that I've been creating, is how brand architecture can be useful. So we've always been talking about these three audiences as different brands. But what I want to show you now is that now we've established, quite a monolithic approach for the Cheese Please brand, Meals with Ease. And, that you can probably visualize what everything will look like for that brand now. But if I wanted to target, Expert Edward within my Cheese Please brand, I could do that in an endorsed way. Think of a new product name using the same fonts, but using different colors. And you see now that, True Blue, a cut above, this is the sort of thing that I think is going to be suitable for Expert Edward, but I want to encourage him to buy my cheese, but I'm not doing it under the Cheese Please brand. I'm just saying made by Cheese Please. He's going to focus on the top message. But also my other customer, the Curious Colin, I might create a completely different product. I'm going to do pasta for him. I'm going to create, faster pasta, but there's no fonts and colors now that are relevant to the corporate brand, the parent brand. That's all completely unique to Colin, but it creates a whole look and feel and a range of products and services that I can sell to that audience. And I would probably just have something very small. If it's on the packaging, it would be on the back that just says a Cheese Please company. And so you can sort of see how you can sort of modify your own brand to face these different audiences, but you are building new tools and new techniques to get to them. So the final thing, just actually, here's the worksheets. I would look at the what's right for you type activity, but have a look at all the extra information, because it will really help you think about what's right for your brand. So we've reached the end of the course, and we've gone through all the sessions to help you untangle your brand. We've looked at how to be thinking more creatively, doing our vision, position, creating the brand story in the central core idea, thinking about the naming, strap lines and messaging that actually will kind of engage with people before moving on to the tone of voice and the visual side of things that is going to make us stand out. The final thing, obviously, we've just done is the brand architecture, how we can expand our brand as we try to reach new audiences with new products and services. I really hope this has helped you untangle your brand. And if you've got any questions, please do ask. But please do go and kind of implement some of these things, because just a few of these things I know will make a big difference to your brand and your ability to connect with the customer who are really going to fall in love with your products and services. So thank you very much. I've really enjoyed doing this course and look forward to seeing you soon.